Alright, well, quite irritatingly, I just recorded 16 minutes of this commentary before realizing I didn't have the footage rolling. So we were going to redo this. This footage has been submitted by a Mirage player who is a skill clicker. And they said that they're trying to get used to keyboard binds, but in the middle of the game, they go back to sort of what is default and natural to them. Which makes sense to me 100%. I think it's actually a really bad idea to try and relearn your entire brain configuration and muscle memory in live PvP matches. Maybe it's better to go to hot joins, or PvE realistically is where to go. I, believe me, change my binds a lot, and it completely messes me up all the time. And that I just change a couple of binds. I cannot imagine trying to do everything all at once. Nonetheless, we're going to see what we've got. And they're playing a Mirage build that is, you know, one of the most forgiving, comfortable builds in the game at the moment. So I think this is a good thing for you to play as a skill clicker. We'll see how you do. So looking at the build, this is a Condi Mirage build that, in my opinion, is a side noder, okay? It's a very mobile side noder. You've gone both ambush and blink, but that's perfectly respectable if you're using them to get to the cap before it's neutralized. It's actually very, very, very strong if you play like that. You won't be able to 1v1 so well once you're on there, but I really like these. It's not meta, but this is actually a way that I've played Mirage for a long time, right? Gets you a bit of a reputation as a slightly worse 1v1er, but you can, in some circumstances, get really, really big wins because you can be very aggressive at other nodes, at other engagements, and still get back in time, which I quite like. That said, you're on double Doom, double energy. That's really good. That's quite meta. That's what most people recommend. I actually think that currently, current Mirage builds are very limited on the cleanse, okay? You've got Jaunt and you've got this if you're running it. A lot of people have subbed out for Days Mantra. In which case, actually, I like double cleansing sigil instead of the Dooms. That's just sort of a me thing. Some people definitely think that Doom is better, and I think, you know, that's reasonable as well. Also, you're on Traveler runes, which, you know, I love that 25% move speed as well. However, in terms of having Phase Retreat, Jaunt, and these two, I think you have enough mobility anyway that you probably could run something tankier, like Adventurer, which gives you more endurance while you're on the node, or even crazy tanky things like Earth or whatever. Moving on, for your traits, you've got pretty much everything exactly as I would have it. You're on Chaotic Interruption, right? Instead of Bountiful Disillusionment, which is also a good, strong trait. And you might say, well, there's no Days Mantra. You don't need Days Mantra to proc this. This is perfectly realistic and viable. You've got double Chaos Storm. You've got the Diversion. You've got everything you need, right? You've got Magic Bullet. You're fine. You can proc this, and even before the big Mirage nerfs a while back when everyone was in Bountiful Disillusionment, CI was still pretty good. I might swap this, though. I think that it's probably better to take the protection. You can really feel it after a few games. This I would swap based on matchup. If I'm against a warrior, I'd rather the blind on Cry of Frustration, so you can blind like a full counter or whatever. Anyway, it's okay. It's not a bad build. It's not even a bad skill clicker build, realistically. And I think you might be able to do all right. We can look at positioning, though, and how you move and how you rotate a little bit better. So because I've actually already recorded this, I kind of know how certain things are going to go. I'm going to try and repeat what I said before. The whole prediction, I mean, I pretty much called exactly how some of this would go anyway. So on the start of this, I would definitely go close, and that's exactly what you do. I'd go close because your composition is double Scourge Firebrand with some power supplementary damage on the core guard at mid. You have a ridiculous mid comp for Legacy, so you are massively favored here. If you side node properly, if you know your role and you do this properly, this is such an easy game. It's your job to take this waterfall and keep an eye out for anyone who comes to claim it for themselves, okay? I like how you got to the node, you blinked, but you only used one phase retreat, one Jaunt. You didn't phase retreat in there, but not everybody does that, so that's fine. You move on up to mid. Now, at mid, what I would do is not go very deep just yet. I would stay on the cliff here. And by the way, I would have swung my camera to the right to see if any like late players was coming to decap me instantly at the start. Sorry, via this route. And you didn't do that, but you weren't punished for it. Some games you will be a little bit, but you want to be aware because this is your main duty, making sure you're not debunked. Okay, you've got such a crazy strong fight here anyway. I like that you take your target on your team's target. Okay, and they've chosen to go for the Firebrand, so are you. He's just popped a ton of stab on himself as well, by the way, so he's going to be all empty soon. You don't need to open with a magic bullet when he has stab. That's one of the first things you check. But here, you've come down to pressure this, and you've got a downstate here, which you could support with like a Chaos Storm over it to give blocks and things. Or you could Chaos Storm on this and interrupt this. you're going to go kind of deep here to get this firebrand, but miss it. Don't forget, weapon swap Chaos Storm, you get Doom, and you get the Chaos Storm poison. Could have been kind of nice. In fact, I might have Chaos Stormed and healed on top of that to try and stop the interrupt. They get 2 reses. I really don't like your positioning now. Remember, because Waterfall is what your job is. And let me ask you something. Is there a player going for Waterfall? Do you know? I don't know. I can't see. You definitely don't know. You can't see. So this isn't very good. I would have stayed on the other half of the node if I could have. I probably would have ranged Chaos Storm to deal with this or gone for the res or something. So did somebody go back there during this time? Well, we have no way of knowing. And one of the main things you want to do is just watch this, right? Because if somebody creeps around here, you want to blink up. Anyway, so you're taking the fight, some extra pressure, and that's fine. So they get another res there, which is pretty unfortunate. You could have chosen to decap now as well at this point, because I think your team's okay enough here. And I think you're a little bit low pressure as a skill clicker, so you could have like gone to Quarry if you're that confident nobody's doing anything at Waterfall. Pressuring this Scourge off node is quite nice. But now if we look at the minimap, you've just been debunked, okay? So you've missed your first window. The entire reason really to run both of these is so that this isn't neutral, so that you get to take your 1v1 on your own node, right? Now that it is neutral, you have to get there now before it flips, okay? If you let them cap the whole thing, you've failed at your job, realistically. You get a kill, and I know what you're probably thinking, but WP, look, I'm scoring these kills. Thing is, your team could have probably done a lot of this as it is anyway. And look at the map. You're about to have no nodes versus 2 of theirs, because you're 5-man zerging mid with nothing coming out of it. So, I don't even think Waterfall's on your mind. Waterfall full caps, and now you're going to go to Quarry, which actually isn't a bad play, right? Because Quarry is a free decap. You want a 1v1, but you want a 1v1 on a neutral node or your own. And so doing this is actually kind of efficient now that you've made that other mistake. Here you could just press phase retreat and you would jump forward again instantly because you have a target on a guy that's behind you. You've just dropped that target so you can't anymore. But that's something you can do a lot for extra mobility. So, yeah, now you're taking the decap, but you've kind of not done what your build is strong for doing. I mean, in a way, your build is strong for this because you're Traveler and you've got lots of mobility, so you're kind of taking advantage of what you've done here. But, you know, I would have rathered you take that fight, I think, instead, while it was still blue. So now the other problem is this. You've traded your close point for your far point. And one of the real difficulties with far, like, why do we even call this far, you know, in terms of how this map functions, right? Because in a lot of ways, getting to them from your spawn feels very similar in terms of travel distance. Well, it's the way that the terrain works, right? If you're holding Waterfall, okay, it's very easy to watch for enemies that respawn and run up and attack it, because you have clear line of sight on all of this. You can easily see. However, if you take far, you can't easily see enemies like this because there's a freaking mountain in the way. Where you're standing, you have to look through these cliffs you can't see. So you can't really contribute much at mid anymore. It's very hard to come down, contribute at mid, and get back in time because it's so hard to see where someone's moving from. And so, look, I don't even think any of this is on your mind. You've just sort of charged on in and you just want to kill things. And look, you're getting decapped straight away. I wouldn't be here. I would have taken that fight. Once again, you do like the mobility trade-off. Once again, you could weapon swap phase retreat right now, and you would get to the node a little bit quicker and deny them more points. Little things like that, you might say, well, WP, is it really that important? I always feel like the tiny little things like that are important because eventually you'll have a game where you win 500 to 499 or you lose 500 to 499 and all it meant was just press phase retreat and decap that second earlier and then you could have pushed it into extra time or whatever, but you didn't. And so I just never want to feel, if I lose a really close game, I never want to feel like I lost it on some minor efficiency, right? Because the way that rating works is very binary. It doesn't care, you know, if a loss is a loss. It doesn't care if it was 499 to 500. Anyway, so you get on this Scourge. This is a good target, but the entire time you're fighting this Scourge, and he was low, I think you saw that he was low because of this, you have the wrong target this entire time. You used the Scepter 3 on the wrong guy. You used your Pistol 4 on the wrong guy, and you still don't have a target on him. So this is really ugly. You're using your Warlocks on the wrong guy. You've just wasted a ton of cooldowns. Again, if you had the target, you could have phase retreated forwards. I like your instinct to try and neutralize him before he gets to something. I would have Chaos Stormed already. You win this 1v1. This is the easiest thing to do in the entire game right now, a 1v1 on against especially against like a gold Scourge. While you're playing a Mirage. Just spam your cooldowns and you'll kill him. However, your main goal is to stay out of his AoEs, which is exactly what you're doing. You haven't popped the marks. You've stayed far enough away. You're not walking into the Trail of Anguish. He died off node. You could bleed this. There's someone incoming, though, so you kind of don't want to. I would press this, actually. You just mind racked? You don't really need to mind rack much on this build, so don't use this button very much at all. You really don't have to. You get a little bit of vigor, but honestly, don't worry about it. Here, yeah, I would have probably pressed this to get as much pressure as possible before this comes in. I also would have targeted it in case there's a firebrand ready to interrupt Mercy. It is a firebrand, so that's a bit unfortunate. I think he's going to get the res now. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. So now you're 2v1. You can make massive plays here. You have their Firebrand Scourge. Now Firebrand Scourge does amazing in like big team fights and 2v2s, but a Firebrand Scourge that's caught against a side noder is a horrible experience for the Firebrand Scourge. Now think about it, guys. Why is that? What if you stay here and you just play a bit defensively and kite around so they can't easily kill you, which is more than possible, especially on the quarry. If you stay here and then they have to spend ages to kill you in a 2v1, well, what are their options? What do they do? Do they have the Scourge rotate off so that you are against the Firebrand? Well, then you just kill the Firebrand or blow his cooldowns for ages and ages and eventually kill. The Firebrand has no win condition. Well, so they can't do that. Do they have the Firebrand rotate off? Well, then they've just left a Scourge against a Mirage and you instantly win there. So what do? Well, they have to 2v1 you, or they both leave. So, and every single play, there's 4 outcomes for them. Every single one of those outcomes is a horrible loss for their Firebrand Scourge, because they can't kill you easily if you kite around. They can't leave one person aside, or they just have to give up the node, meaning this was all wasted time. And it is really, really, really punishing. So you could destroy their team right now by simply coming around the side and kiting. Instead, you're scared of 2 players and you disengage. Now, the instinct to again, you could phase retreat. Again, the instinct to disengage is good. But you could have such an amazing play right now. Your team's cleaning everything else up. They would come and reinforce you as well after this. And you could 500-0 them from here. Instead, you've pushed back to mid. But yeah, leaving when you're outnumbered, you know, that's something to do, or kiting when you're outnumbered. I would kite if I were you a little bit more. My advice to you actually is to play these maps in like hot joins or unranked and get used to all the different things you can do. Like, you strike me as someone nervous and not like familiar with all the places you can go. You're scared that a kite spot won't actually save your life, and you just have to like trust in them. You just have to try them a little bit. I remember very much being scared of kite spots way back in like 2012 and not being cautious about them, not being confident in them, but they can do a lot for you. So you immediately push. What you've done here is you've re-engaged that description I described a second ago. You forced it again, but you're now against Core Guard, which is going to be harder for you to shake. I'd Chaos Storm on top of yourself. I would definitely kite, because there's no Firebrand here. I would come up around the side right now. This is a victory for you as long as there's 2 of them and they can't do anything. I like the Arcane Thievery there. A Chaos Storm afterward would have been kind of nice. So you've re-engaged with your allies in a weird way here. This is actually something I'm quite bad with, re-engaging with my allies. I always try to kite and then get myself killed on a kite spot instead of like regrouping with like a scrapper or whatever, as I probably should. So anyway, I think that you're doing okay. And that was a nice little play. Your instinct there. Even though I think it's probably just because you don't think about kiting very much. Taking this fight is fine. Your team is like backnoding for you. But your positioning isn't actually good. What you want is your team fighters here, and you want to be at mid, or you want to be at close. Instead, you've got team fighters doing that, and that's not very good, to be honest. You've stopped your team fighters being able to. Once again, a Firebrand comes in with Mercy, which, if you'd held your camera a little bit different, could have been nicer. I don't know whether you're going to lose this fight. I'm pretty sure it's about here. Last time I was watching the footage that it failed, so I don't know what's going to happen now. I can start actually predicting what's going on again here. So your team's managing to win, even though that's not really necessarily their roles. Here I would come up round the side again. I think that there's just a lot of pressure. You've been given barrier by your Scourge. I would definitely hide up round the side. I think you're going to die here. You are dying. So he might blood res you now. So here, if he's blood resing you, you do have a stomp coming, but you kind of want to delay this as long as possible. He might F2 and fear, or he might F4 and fear, in which case you're fine. He can do that while resing. You want to delay this, because if you press this, the RNG might move you. I mean, you've got a good audit, will keep you in the well, but you want to delay. So there's the stomp. You kind of didn't have much of a choice. Yeah, you got bad RNG. You moved out. That's a shame. So if he gets the... I doubt he gets res. So yeah, I think that you guys died there because you never kited early enough. So your Scourge ended up having all these jobs to do. These marks from the enemy are kind of interesting. I used to think that just always meant that they were like a robot that was cast... Like literally a pure script-operated bot in PvP. Which you sometimes see on Scourge builds. But actually it's just that some players use snap ground targeting. Which means that all the marks like mechanically get placed on top of one another. It's not good anyway because you can't mark bodies. That's a sign that it's a low red game. Here, I'd probably push far. I probably wouldn't come to mid. I'd push far and split them again. You're going to be better in the other objectives. This is okay, though. I would have taken the magic bullet already. Here, you magic bulleted while you're diverting. That's not really very good. You want to chain your CCs out slower so that he tries to cast something, interrupted CI. He tries to cast something, interrupted CI. He tries to come to the... So you want to, like, trail things in and you want to pace stuff out. You don't want to blow it all at once. Because then during the window of the 1 days, it's kind of over. All right, so here you took some pressure for your team at mids. And then once it felt like they were winning, you came to far. I think that's actually okay. Again, though, Waterfall here is getting decapped. Just because you never won this, specifically yourself, doesn't mean it's not your duty to protect it. Close point is better than far. So, in terms of visibility and that stuff I said earlier. So, realistically, at that previous mid, you could have watched for anyone crossing and you could have stopped that decap. Again, you're just, like, swapping nodes. You're just... Which is not a victory for your team. Let's be clear. You're not a victory for your team here. You're just, like, stalling the status quo. Which, thankfully, is in your favor because your team's so stacked compositionally compared to the enemies. Your camera's really good here. I really like this positioning. This is brilliant. You can see both areas. Your FOV feels very reclined. Your zoom feels very minimal. Maybe bump those up in your options. I feel quite claustrophobic watching your footage. There is an advantage to lower FOV, and that's that you can see enemy animations a bit better. It can always be kind of challenging to see that on Mirage anyway. So you tried to magic bullet there when he was behind you and you countercast your own skill. Here, you've got to get over to the node, right? So jaunt, illusory ambush. You need to be on that node to not get decapped. You're not doing your job here, really. You're playing like a Rev, right? Just trying to push this kill. And that is important, obviously. I mean, there were many here, so my play of going to the node, I would have only been able to stall that for a second before having to go kite anyway. So you maintaining pressure is okay. You've gone very deep, and your team is, like, content with a 2-cap, which isn't actually a good play from your team, in my opinion. I think you should always push for the third. People are welcome to tell me I'm wrong in the comments, but I think pushing for the third is always a good idea. Oh, no, you're doing it. Do you come all the way around? So you could stand on this so the core guard can't port on you. You don't really have too much help for your ally here. So your team is slowly coming in. Yeah, you didn't go far enough, quick enough. You didn't sustain yourself. And do you see how you got killed by the core guard? That wouldn't have necessarily happened before. Okay, now that you've been rezzed again, I would either kite out completely, or I would get on the nodes and help pressure with my team. So here I feel like your skill clicking is leaving you a little bit limited because you can't sort of press the buttons fast enough. But you're doing okay. I'd hold a Scepter 2 there. Do you see you just hit this? That could have been an amazing 5 Torment proc on this guy. Because your Scepter 2 can... someone else can trigger it, and then you can load someone else, a completely different target with the condition damage. I'd position myself here to phase retreat up the edge or jaunt up the edge. I'd probably Chaos Storm right about now as well. Dead on the node. Because even if no one's directly on it in the second, they all look like they're so node heavy, they're going to get on it. Yeah, I would use the magic bullet, the 4 and the 5. That's very good. I would steal boons from this guy and interrupt. 5 stability would be quite nice. Oh, I would definitely... Okay, you're using it now. Chaos Storm again is so good. Don't forget, this is interrupts. Constant interrupts. It's like 25 might for you if you cast this in a team fight. Yeah, there you go. You got it. And the heal skill one as well. I would trail through these since you're running Desert Distortion trait. So yeah, you're forcing this here, but realistically, I want your other players to be here, and I want you to be back there. This is an enemy node, remember, right? So what you're doing is a very aggressive team fight to try and push for the 3rd cap. And you're not the one that should be doing that. You should have been a mid, or you should have been a close. You're very fortunate, realistically, that your allies are sort of carrying you through this game. I'm finding this is a thing on these videos. People keep submitting wins, I think because they're nervous to submit losses. And they're all wins where they're only winning because their allies are playing very well. and the enemies are just super outmatched, it's not necessarily because of their gameplay, right? It's kind of an interesting thing, actually. Noticing here on editing, you held the node with this blink. You stayed away from the target. You waited for your 5 round to come on. That was really nice. Good stuff on that. Anyway, yeah, good Scepter 2 there as well. You stopped that guy's burst. And you're definitely going to win this game. You've even had someone push over to their Lord, which I don't actually agree with you going to. Again, I'd rather you backnode. I would get my, yeah, goods. You got so many boons. You've got good 5 round support on you right now. Did you cancel cast your heal a second ago? Get interrupted. After you drop your heal, stay on it because you get a Chaos Storm for boons, which and Aegis and stuff. And then also it drops a mirror for you, which you can ambush out of. You see this mirror? And you see the Chaos Storm that's on? Imagine if you'd been stood on that. I like that you did jaunt over to try and pick it up. I like that. You're thinking about a lot of things, actually. You struck me as a player that would be a good player, ultimately. Because there's a lot of things on your mind that I think players at your current level and your current standard would never think about. So, yeah, well done. So, yeah, you get the win. I think you need to think more carefully about what your build is there for. And be more cautious about that. Yeah, I think Gold 2 is about where you feel like... That feels like Gold 2 standard. I think you'll very quickly, once you learn how to hold nodes and play what your build is for, I think you'll very quickly rock it up. This is a very, very, very strong spec. As for the skill clicking, you actually weren't as limited. Like, your skill execution rate was not as limited as I thought it was. I wonder, however, how weak your powers of observation are when you're having to physically follow the mouse to the skill bar constantly to know what you're pressing. It means your ability to take in new information is really limited. It's not just about clunkiness and slowness. It's about actually like the number of things that you're watching for. And I think you've got too many jobs to do. So good luck with continuing to break away from skill clicking. I love that you've sent some footage of a skill clicker because people sneer at skill clickers so much. But I actually think there was some pretty redeeming stuff you did there. So good job. And if you want to show me some progress a bit later, then feel free to. Thanks very much for watching, guys. And I'll see you on the next one very soon.